there are data sets that show that women tend to go for guys who are anywhere between 3 to 7 years older than they are, depending on what they happen to find attractive at that time, depending on what their needs are, depending on what their sort of, I want to say, self-actualization is about their own attractiveness or their own ability to attract that guy, right? For men, it's different. Between the ages of 15 and all the way up to like 90 years old, men find women between the ages of, say, 22 and 24 years old the most attractive across the board. Now, this is according to their data sets. Is it like super scientific? No, but it is OkCupid. I am sure there are more current data sets that show pretty much the same thing. Let me see if I can grab those for you guys real quick here. There they are. Oh, that's why. Hang on one second. I'm going to, I got these, but I actually pulled these off of my site. Now I'm going to have to show them to you on here. There we go. All right. So this is the first data set, and this is what a woman's age versus the age of the men who look best to her. Now, this, again, is from Dataclysm. So let's look at this. There it is. All right. So this is it right here. And as you can see, 20, you've got, again, this is according to OkCupid. This is according to their stats from back in 2014. A woman's age versus the age of the men who look best to her. Now, again, this is physique. This is physical. This isn't necessarily, this is the guy I'm going to get with, but this is the guy who generally looks pretty good to me. So 20, and if you look on down the list here, when you're looking at, say, this is the age along here from 20 to 50. And we're looking at notice how it staggers here. So you got one, now remember, this is looks best, okay? Data says, there are other data sets that say that women tend to pair with guys who are anywhere between 3 to 7 years older than they are. And we can look at that according to, let's see, what was it, Census Bureau data, and then there's other data sets as well. So that is that right there. And as you can see, let me call that back up again. Come back here, please. Thank you. As you can see, that's what now finally I got my arrow. As you can see, these are between, say, 39 and 40, 41. 38 looks pretty good. Now we're kind of going a little bit younger as they get a little bit older. And then you'll notice that it changes and it switches up. Now they're still looking for younger guys when a woman gets to be about 50. It's still looking for younger as far as like what's attractive to them. But again, who do they get with in the long term? Now, this might seem like, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting data set, Rollo. What does this mean? Okay, well, I'm going to show you what it means right here. This is actually what it means. And let me, oh man, I got to throw the other one up. Okay, we're going to kill that one. And we're going to show you this one. Sorry, I didn't have these prepped as well as I thought I would. There we go. All right. So you'll notice a difference. There's quite a bit of difference between the women's chart and the men's chart. This is a man's age versus the age of the women who look best to him. Now, I've seen data sets that go all the way back to, like, say, 15, but I think OkCupid is trying to stay within a realm of sanity here. 20 to 50 years old. Now, if you look at the data sets in this, we're looking at like 20, 20, 21, 21, 21, and on down the line here, all the way across, all the way down to 50. Now, even a 50-year-old finds, the average 50-year-old finds the 22 to be the best looking age for women. This is, and again, like, I don't think I've ever brought this up before, but that is the data set according to OkCupid. And that is, we are still quoting this, by the way. I know that if somebody wants to give me, and Rugby, if you're watching, or Sam, if you're watching, if you can find more current, more recent data on this, I would be very curious to see what it is. But that was Dataclysm from OkCupid. I'm sure they have updated those numbers since then. But I like looking at older numbers today because things weren't as woke. I mean, they were woke, but they weren't as woke as they are today. And so when you look at research data, one of the problems I have is when people say, "Well, show me cite me the sources, show me the sources." I'm happy to show you those sources, but again, what will happen is you'll get into this situation of kind of dueling research. And like when my favorite argument is when it comes down to ovulatory shift, because if you look at 25 plus years of Marty Hazelton doing research on, very intense research on ovulatory shift, and repeating these experiments and showing robust data sets. And then all it takes is one female psychologist who has an axe to grind against the idea that possibly women really want to get with a guy, who's more masculinized during her proliferative phase of her menstrual cycle. And then get into pee hacking, which is, and I don't mean pee hack, I mean like massaging the numbers to make it seem as if these are unreliable numbers. I tend to look at older studies as maybe slightly more valid than newer ones, simply because there's more of an ideological, I guess, imperative, like a litmus test today for a lot of research. So that's why I go back to those. So people are wondering, well, that's, when I particularly when I talk about the data sets that show that women who have more sexual partners tend to have a higher incidence of a divorce, or they tend to report more marital unhappiness because we're again, correlation, causation, don't know, but these are the data sets that we have. If you go back and you look for those data sets, you'll find that most of them are from like the mid 2000s, maybe the early 2010s, and you won't find anything else from that. Occasionally you'll see, like, say, the Atlantic will dig something up. Oddly enough, the Atlantic will dig something up and sort of go against the grain. But for the most part, it's really hard to get reliable research numbers for those, because there is such this, there's no funding for it. There's no way to sort of find the things that are unflattering to the gynocentric social order. So you kind of have to go back to those old data sets and look at them and sort of like interpret them through a, I guess, 2022 lens right now. So that's what I did right there. But I wanted to point that out because a lot of people were running Jack up the flagpole for like, oh, he's a groomer. And I understand why. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. I understand why there is that sort of, ooh, he's kind of creepy because he's talking about younger women. The reason for that is because there is this idea that men should get, date your own age appropriateness. Remember when, was it Keanu Reeves got with his girlfriend? I don't know if are they still together? Maybe they're not. The girl that he was, I guess it was one of his managers or somebody. Maybe it was his like stylist or something. But she's actually younger than him. I think she's 46 and he's something like 54. I think 53. And she looks much older than him. She looks like, because she's got the gray hair, she kind of has that sort of motherly appeal. And women loved it, loved that. When those pictures came out and they were officially dating, and I think this was like a year or two ago. Women were just 57. Is that how old he is? God, for real? He's really 57. Wow. Okay. Good enough. Fair enough. He's still much older than she is. But she looks like an old school marm almost. And what was the first thing out of popular culture's mouth is, oh, I love him that much more because now he's dating somebody who's age appropriate. Well, technically no. Because if he's 57 57 now, and let's just say she's 48, right, let's just round it off. Maybe she's 47 and he's 57. That's still a 10 years difference. So if you got a 30-year-old guy and he's dating a 20-year-old girl, that might rub women the wrong way. But when it's Keanu Reeves at 57 and his girlfriend who looks older than him is 47, we don't have a problem with that. That's what we're going to dig at today. Because we can talk about the discrepancies between, say, our evolved interests in our own mating strategy versus what we think socially ought to be the way that men should go about pursuing and vetting women and finding quality women and all the great positivity talk that we get into. Then somebody like Jack comes along, and I'm going to read part of his article. I know, as creepy as it's going to sound, because I know why they're getting into this. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knows where those data points are coming from, because I don't think even Tim knows where those data points came from that he's quoting himself. I've quoted them several times, and I don't think I've ever even put the picture of the book up on my show, nor have I used those graphs. I don't think I've used those graphs in the past. Maybe I have, but I think it needs to be there, black and white, so people can see there's a marked difference between what looks good for a woman and what looks good for a man. And when you look at those differences, when you look at the women's chart and it's like a little bit older, I mean, it gets younger later on as she gets older, obviously, but it still staggers down that, the parallel. So 22, 22, 23, 24, that. But for men, right down that right down the line. 22, 21, 23. You want to know why I use this? I constantly use it. Man, there was no better vindication of this chart than that book. No better vindication, because when I put this out, I had no idea what dataclysm was. In fact, I think I did that chart in 2012, I think. I'm pretty sure. And when I came up with that, and still to this day, I have people, like, if you go and you search that chart, like go on Google Google Images, and you put that chart, you put this chart into Google Images, you'll find people just like shitting all over it, because it's like, they don't want it to be true. They're like, or they'll misinterpret it. They'll say, oh, well, no 23-year-old is going to get with a 36-year-old. And that's not, these two, like the pink and the blue, those are mutually exclusive. Okay. And you know how we know they're mutually exclusive? Because of the data set that I just showed you a few minutes ago. Yes. This is not suggesting that 23-year-old women are just like mooning for 36-year-old guys. I'm pointing out right here that the peak of women's, sexual market value is at 23. And the peak for men tends to be right around 36, 37. Some people they'll fight me on it, but I mean, every now and then something comes along and it validates that graph. And again, I just work here, man. And it's once again, God makes a joke and I'm the only one that gets it because I have the history. I understand. I remember all that stuff. I remember when that happened.